Now, through the late 80s, early 90s, you would have seen this shocker blonde hair across the basketball court if you're a basketball fan in Australia, putting his body under immense strain, pressure and duress with an attitude that earned him the nickname The Wild Thing. The last place you'd expect to see former NBL star Simon Kerle is a yoga studio, but that's exactly where you'll find him every day as the owner and founder of Raw Power Yoga in Albion. Simon, thanks for coming in today.
It's great to be here, mate. And just before we go on, okay, you said 80s and 90s, right?
Late 80s?
The very late 80s. I was 18, and I didn't finish until mid-2000s.
Well,
so you're forgetting the 2000s,
just
mate.
that 1 year, or 2005?
No, 2000.
But I mean,
2005.
But you went across the world.
3 decades I played.
You spanned 3 decades. But you played in Italy?
I did.
Where else?
Just Italy and, Australia, Melbourne, Townsville, and it finished in Brisbane.
And at the Bullets?
Yep. I had an opportunity to go to Belgium at one stage, but Eddie Groves, who was our owner and who I love dearly, he was amazing. And he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. It was like The Godfather. Yeah,
I was about to do a Marlon Brando impersonation over there, right? But then, okay, so you finish up ball and your body is, it's buckled after all that stress and sprain and pressure, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, for me, I'd never been injured. I'd never missed games through injury ever before. But what had happened was, out of the last 4 years that I played, I had ankle surgery, missed half a year, ankle surgery, missed half a year, ankle surgery, missed a full year, and then I came back. And all this happened when I was playing the best I'd ever played. I'd just come back from Italy, played really well in Italy, was like one of the leading scorers, was the second leading scorer in the NBL. So I could not have been playing any better, but I was one of those people that overtrained. I mean, I like to overtrain because to me it was, the work ethic was everything, and I just wanted to do more than anybody else. But your body will make you pay at some stage if you do not give it rest and recovery. And I didn't. And then I went through those 3 ankle surgeries. And then my final year, I was like, I could have retired at 34. I was like, I can't finish on that kind of note. And then, came back and had a final year and retired at 35. But your body does get pretty smashed. And I think 4 years ago, I had what's called hip resurfacing. So It's very, very, very similar to a hip replacement, but hip replacement a lot more structure and a lot more restrictive. And the surgeon looked at me and said, "You look like somebody who's quite active." And I'm right, you're correct. And, and they thought that wasn't necessarily basketball, but a bit of hereditary. But basketball probably didn't help smashing it through 20 years. Okay, so you're coming to the end of your career. You've got all those injuries. Tell me how you make the leap from pro sport to being a yogi, like I guess, a student and then a teacher, practitioner of yoga. Yeah, well, it was... I was quite lucky. I invested into a lot of different things, bar, restaurants, commercial property. We had franchises, different things like that. And then the GFC hit. Yeah. And it was quite scary. I had, all my money I'd worked really hard for. When you go through the GFC, it wasn't fun. So I was stressed all the time. It was one of those things where at night, when your eyes are closed, but you're not actually sleeping. That's the stress I was under for 3 years. And then I spoke to, there was a girl, she was an incredible journo who was writing for the Village News. It was a little magazine in New Farm. And she was asking me, she goes, what's next for you? And I said, I've got one more commercial property to sell in Melbourne. And once that's sold, I'll be debt-free. And I said, see that tree over there? I've been staring at it for 4 or 5 years. I want to go and lie down, just look at the sky, have no debt. And then I'm thinking about doing yoga because I would drive past a yoga studio every day. Right. And she goes, you should, you'll love it. And she was so cool and so convincing that once that property sold, I went to yoga and loved it, started going twice a day for a year. Met a great girl there. She became a teacher. She said, you should do yoga teacher training. I was like, get real? Who wants to be a yoga teacher? There's no way. But then, I ended up doing it and it changed my life. And, I was quite fortunate. My teacher that I did my training through would be like, do you ever think you'll be a teacher? And I say, never. I don't ever want to be a teacher. I just want to do my training. And then one day I was in a studio in Melbourne with 60 people, and midway through that class, it just hit me. I have to be a yoga teacher. And I just loved it, and then my teacher would say to me, do you ever think you'll open a studio? I said, Tammy, I am never opening a yoga studio. I got too much on. And then I opened a yoga studio. And then the last thing she said, do you ever think you'll do yoga teacher training to teach people to be teachers? I said, are you out of your mind? There's no way I'm going to do that. And then I did it, and it's probably one of the most gratifying things I've ever done.
There's a pattern emerging here, Simon.
I need to speak to Tammy and see if she's going to say what's next. I say, there's no way I'm going to...
Don't be ridiculous.
But I guess, that's the beauty of teachers. They can see things that you can't see, and they've got faith in you more than you have in yourself. And she was amazing, and it's just gone from strength to strength. And we're very lucky. We've just got some of the most amazing students. Like, there's no ego in our studio. Not one person thinks they're better than the other person, and super supportive. It's great.
But that's one of the beautiful things about yoga, right? It doesn't matter what level you're at. You can almost go to any sort of class and just do your thing, and the teacher's going to be really supportive of where you're at.
Yeah, well, we all of our teachers really encourage us. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner or an advanced person going to the class. We say the same thing. Listen, rest whenever you want to rest. If you don't want to do something, if you feel uncomfortable, don't do it. And what that does is allows somebody who's been practicing for 15, 20 years to still get what they need out of it, and someone who's first-timer can get what they want. So, I think as a teacher, you have to be able to keep everybody inclusive, know the strengths and weaknesses, and design the class around that. And, we're very fortunate to have some of the most amazing teachers in Brisbane. Was
there any stigma you had to overcome with yoga? I mean, some stigmas are it's a bit of a woo-woo thing. It's too spiritual. It's, it's foreign. It's exotic. Did you have to overcome anything like that to really throw yourself into it? No,
I think, listen, yoga's like anything. You get some people who talk a good game but don't actually live by the way that they talk, and that's like anything in life. But for me, it was just be you. And listen, I'm not a super spiritual person. I love meditation. I love breath work. But, it's not about, I bring my flavor to it. All our teachers bring their different flavor to it. So I don't try to be something that I'm not. And so for me, it wasn't, I didn't have to be the so-called, spiritual yogi who...
Guru.
Yeah, it's not. I don't even think of myself as a teacher. I just say, hey, listen, I teach yoga. I love yoga. Come to my class, get what you get out of it.
It's 1:20. My name's Johnny Manning. My guest is Simon Kerle, former NBL professional basketball superstar, and now yoga instructor at Raw Power Yoga. Now, if you have done yoga before, or if you've thought about doing yoga, I want to hear from you. The number is 1300 222 612, or the number to text in is 0467 922 612. Simon, yoga is obviously good for you. It's elongating. It's increasing mobility. It's good for your mind as well. Tell me some of the transformations you've seen. I mean, you don't have to name anyone, but have you seen people come in and then over time you've just seen this positive change in them?
Well, we even like we had one of the students a couple of years ago came into our teacher training. She was super stressed and depressed, and she'd never done meditation before. And most people get freaked out with meditation. And, it took me 3 or 4 years to really understand it. It was you just got to simplify it. And for me, the easiest thing was I would sit down and I would inhale for 4, exhale for 5 or 6. That's how I started. And now I have a mantra and I repeat a mantra. You don't have to sit there and levitate cross-legged for 30, 40 minutes. Start off with 5 minutes. Do something really, really simple. And for her, seeing where she was at, and I just said, listen, start off 5 minutes a day for a week, then add on a minute each time. And just to see her progression throughout the next 2 or 3 months was phenomenal. Just from a confidence standpoint, her anxiety dropped, her depression levels dropped. But I really just compared to what it did for me.
Yeah.
And, I have 3 different businesses, 3 different things. I work 15-hour days, between 5 and 7 days a week. And if I didn't meditate and work on breath work, like my stress levels would be extremely high. And it's just a simple thing. Like, people freak out over they think it's very complex, but it's not. Just shut your eyes, focus on slowly breathing in and out, 5 minutes a day. You do that 5 minutes a day, I don't care how stressed you are, your anxiety levels, they're going to drop. And so for me, it was a life changer. It just changed my life. But I think one of the biggest success stories we've had we do a lot of stuff with the Australian Defence Force. We teach them to be teachers.
Really?
Yeah. And so 3 years ago, one of their sergeants came in and did my training. And he's like, when you speak to the other soldiers, he's a machine. He's probably in his late 30s, but a dead set machine. And he fell in love with breath work, meditation, and the practice. And, you know, I was talking to him and he said that saved him getting into meditation and breath work. You know, because the stuff that they go through and the things that they see, like, we will never understand that. And so for somebody that hardcore, you know, he's a killer, that's what he was trained to do, to see the benefits of that and to get massive gains. And he was the big push about getting it onto the base. And now we do that every year with them, you know, and we have those guys coming into our studio every week. And
you see a lot of elite athletes nowadays doing it as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we did the Broncos and the Lions for 3 years. Yep. I did some work with the Bullets last year. It's one of those things. It's not saying don't do your other training, but just incorporate some form of yoga, whether it's breath work, whether it's meditation, whether it's, you know, the physical practice. It will make you a better athlete. It just will. LeBron James has his own yoga teacher. So it's like you got a guy here making over $150 million a year with all of his things, and he has a full-time yoga teacher. Now, dude's 6'8", 220 kilos. He's the beast.
Yeah.
Does he need to do that? Well, if he wants to be at the level he's at, that's what he chooses to do.
What about people who have never done any sort of activity? They're basically, not stagnant, but they're just not into exercise. They can get great benefits out of yoga as well.
Anybody who does it, it's like you just go at the pace where you're at. Like, we just tell people, listen, don't worry. We have people who come in who couldn't even touch their knees, and then in 4 or 5 months later of just coming 2-3 days a week, now they can touch their ankles.
Yep.
You know, just things like, it's just opening up the body, showing them how to breathe correctly, move correctly, and then they just get massive benefits from it.
Where can people find your yoga studio, Simon?
Mate, we're at 97 Sandgate Road in Albion.
Yep.
So, we've got plenty of free parking. But, mate, one of the amazing things too is the offshoot of this is I started a business called Yoga Bears Kids Yoga, and we put kids yoga into childcare centres around Australia. Now, we've been doing that for 4 years, and we're in 100 centres. And just the benefits those kids get, just learning how to breathe properly, move correctly, it's just been an absolute revelation. So it's great that the childcare centres are getting behind it and seeing the benefits that they get, because then the kids go home to their parents, not all hyped up and crazy.
Yeah.
Because they just learn simple breathing techniques to lower their anxiety levels.
Yoga for anyone of any level of activity or any age. Simon Kerle, thank you so much for coming to talk to me about yoga. I am a fan.
Well, we love having you in the studio, mate, so get your butt back down there.